National Signing Day, and of course here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, we're all over it. And we go to the West Coast in the Pac-12's premier program, USC. We got Matt Lowry on the line from Conquest Chronicles to talk USC football. Of course, on the field with the Pac-12 championship game coming up against Oregon, the college football ranking. But first and foremost, hey, this is by many measurements the most important day in college football when you bring in the talent, Matt. So how you doing today?
Doing pretty good. It's been a long morning with National Signing Day, or the early signing period as we would call it, and it's been a very I don't want to say a typical one, but it's been a pretty busy one, considering that a lot of recruits are now signing early due to the coronavirus pandemic. On top of, in California, football not starting until until most likely January, February, thanks to the recent CIF update that was put out last night or yesterday afternoon. So we're seeing a lot of recruits signing right now.
USC currently with the second-rated class, according to the 247 Sports Composite, in the Pac-12, number 12 nationally. 12 4-stars, 8 3-stars out of 20 commits. Any last-minute news that may come in regards to guys that are on the fence that may break one way or the other?
Honestly, not really. I mean, we've seen guys like Jake Garcia, who decommitted a few weeks ago, which we kind of knew that was going to somewhat happen because of USC going after Jackson Dart, as well as Miller Moss, who committed early on. So they've brought in 2 quarterbacks in this recruiting class already. But in regards to any surprises, we haven't heard any surprises yet. Now we do know that a lot of these guys, they've already said early that they were going to, commit early on, that they were going to sign, and that that was a given. So.
All right. When we look at this class, Matt, who stands out to you? Who's at the top of the board that most people are really excited about?
I would have to say Miller Moss, and the reason why I say him is because he's a 4-star quarterback. But the thing about him is that a lot of people praise his intelligence and his work ethic. Is that he can make throws that you don't see a lot of people make. He's a very smart football player, very intelligent football player who wants to get better and better and better each and every time. And that's something you don't hear with a lot of, you don't hear about that from a lot of players, Last time we heard about a QB who can make throws that a lot of people don't make, that's Sam Darnold. And we saw how he panned out at USC. And we saw, he ended up being drafted. I believe he ended up being a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. So, a lot of people are saying he kind of reminds people of him, but his intelligence is just out of this world, which is something you don't see from a young player. So that's someone who a lot of people are very excited about, including Graham Harrell, who said that he has the makings to be a star. So that's one guy who a lot of people are very excited about is Miller Moss.
When you look down the board, anybody else that you really like that may not necessarily be that highly touted or publicized, but based on some of the reports that you've seen, based on anything that you've seen on tape that you like?
One guy who I really like, and it's someone who a lot of people are not really talking about, and understandably so. And that's I'm trying to find his name. I think it's Jalen Brown, if I'm not mistaken. I don't want to get the name wrong or anything, but with him. Oh, excuse me, Jalen Smith. I knew I was going to get the name wrong. Jalen Smith. Jalen Smith is somebody who I'm excited for, and the reason for that is because not only he can play corner, but he can play in the slot. He can play as a nickel back. He can play safety. He can even play linebacker for you. So he's someone who I think USC is going to plug around. He's a four-star. He's a four-star athlete. He's somebody who I think USC can play right away, especially noting that you have Elijah Griffin who's going to be a junior. So he's somebody who can play right away, who can slide into that nickel situation, or somebody who you can put in at safety, or you can move him to linebacker. So either way, I think it just depends on how USC and Todd Orlando, how they want to use him, in his freshman year.
Got Matt Lowry on the line from Conquest Chronicles. Encourage all of you to head on over there, check out the USC football coverage as the Trojans, of course, prepare for a Pac-12 championship game, not against Washington, but against Oregon, the team that most people expected to come out of the North, but tagged on 2 losses in 5 games for the Ducks. At USC, of course, undefeated. So let's look at the matchup against Oregon. Your thoughts about the Ducks and the way USC is playing right now, coming off that thrilling game against UCLA?
Well, I think with Oregon, having a chance to really sit down and watch Oregon, the biggest thing with them that I've noticed is just, how can I put it? It looks like the offense is kind of inconsistent in a way right now. And the reason I say that is because you've seen the games against Oregon State, and you've seen the games against Oregon State and Cal. Very uncharacteristic losses from Oregon. That's something I don't even expect. Although we've known Oregon and Cal tends to give Oregon some problems. We know that. The one thing that I like about Oregon, though, is they're very physical on the offensive line. That's a big thing that a lot of people don't point out with Oregon. It's how physical they are on the offensive line. And to me, that's somewhat of a problem for USC, knowing that, USC and physicality, when other teams take it to USC, it tends to be a problem. However, USC don't have to deal with Dorian Thompson-Robinson this time, or Jalen Jalen Smith, or I'm forgetting the ASU QB's name, but they don't have to deal with a dual threat quarterback this time.
Jaden Daniels,
thank you. They don't have to deal with a dual threat quarterback this time. With Tyler Sow, he hasn't looked that, all too great in these games. And the thing with USC is they're improving against the run. And Oregon loves to run the football. That's their thing, is they love to be physical on the offensive line. So what I like about this matchup with USC is they've shown the ability to slow down the run game. Now they have to do it early. That's the problem with USC against UCLA in a few games, is that early on they find themselves in a hole, and then they have to do the whole comeback, kid thing. So if USC can slow down Oregon and the ability to run and force Oregon to throw the ball, I think it comes down to, what does USC do offensively? Now, that's going to be the biggest thing, because we saw what happened last year. Last year, Keaton Slovis made some key mistakes against Oregon. And you remember this, Mark. USC went up 10-0, I believe. They went up 10-0, 13-0. And then Oregon came back and then just took the game from there in the second quarter. And the biggest thing was that could have very easily been a 17-0 game at the start, early on in the first quarter. That could have very easily been a USC big lead. But the biggest thing is just with Slovis is just, he got to make smarter. He has to make smarter decisions against Oregon. That's what plagued them against Oregon last year. Was the throws that he made ended up costing them. But at the same time, you have to deal with an Oregon defense who have some talent too, but they don't have quite the secondary. The one thing I liked, and Todd Orlando said this, was that they went to Dante Williams, and you remember Dante Williams was the defensive back coach for Oregon. Now he's the defensive back coach for USC, and now that they went to him, it's like, hey, we need your insight on Oregon. What can we do to slow down Oregon to beat Oregon in this game? And with 3.5 days to prepare for it, that's your best, it's smart to go to him for that, because he was with the Ducks last year. The Ducks have majority of that staff this year. So it's going to be a whole new thing. I think if USC can slow down Oregon and their ability to run, I think USC can win this game. But I think it's going to be another close one. It's not going to be one of those, all right, USC can run away with this. This is going to be another close one for USC. And this is one of those games I feel it could go either way.
Yeah, just to extend on some of your points, Matt, Oregon has suffered this year in a 3-2 season thus far. Turnovers on offense has been the key issue there. And in the secondary, as you mentioned, blowing coverages, giving up huge plays. They'll play well on defense for 80% of the snaps, and then they'll blow like 3 or 4 coverages each game and give up huge plays. The offensive line, as you mentioned, the recruiting there has been substantial. They have fortified the offensive line. Mario Cristobal believes in very physical football up front. On the other hand, they're very inexperienced. They've gone from the most experienced offensive line in the country last year to losing all of them and only having 1 game started from their offensive line coming into this year. So they're still growing along the offensive front. And of course, they lost an NFL quarterback in Justin Herbert, replaced by Tyler Shook, who's played pretty well, but he's not been outstanding, and he's no replacement right now as a freshman for Justin Herbert.